Okay.
Hello. It's not letting me share my screen, which is good. We are now live.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna start sharing it out now. Yeah.
We're just going to start a countdown. That sucks.
Are we live? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome to Be the
Hey,
Change
Tom.
Collective. Our live streamed event for how to have unconditional love for yourself. I did actually want to share my screen again and just go through this. We are Be the Change Collective, a community-driven personal development and spiritual coaching events. You can find more about us at bethechangecollective.com. Our collective vision. This is a community of shared knowledge, so we can together create the best versions of our world. We are a collective of individuals coming together through meetings and events to share from our own experiences, knowledge, and wisdom, so we can become our best selves, and through acting in alignment with our higher self, create the most favorable versions of our reality. Our wish is to bring people together to learn from one another, not just to learn from one all-knowing preacher or guru. This way, all are empowered to the same level. How to have unconditional love for yourself, originally presented on June 9th, last week, by myself and Zach. Mia couldn't actually be there to attend. All the ideas shared here today are simply of our own perspectives. We ask you not to just accept these ideas or to reject these ideas, but to consider these ideas and see how they may help you become the best version of yourself. All the knowledge and wisdom to be able to live in the way we want is out there. It just needs to be shared.
Cool.
Thank you.
Nice. Good.
So, Mia sadly couldn't be here last week. Did you have any ideas or thoughts that you wanted to talk about or wanted to share on this topic of unconditional love for ourselves?
I think with unconditional love, it's something that is very personal for every person. We all go on our own journeys, and whilst we meet people during our lifetimes and we have certain intersectionality, I think fundamentally that process of unconditional love isn't something that can be necessarily achieved overnight. It's I think so unconditional love is very much a process of understanding oneself, accepting oneself, and embodying oneself. So whilst we are talking about ways in which we can help each other, share wisdom and support each other, ultimately it's the wisdom of the self which allows you to embody yourself and to love yourself, without condition, because that's what unconditional love is, right? We it simply means without condition.
Yeah, with no judgment against the self, right?
Yeah, when you judgments are just we've had this judgment. It's like quite often if you ask someone, what do you love, who do you love, and then posit the question of, is there anything that person or that situation can do which makes you fall out of love with them? Because then it's someone's like conditional love, right?
Yeah.
Is that, are you talking about like unconditional love in terms of a relationship?
Yeah, for example, or like even for yourself. Let's say this, right? Like, I love you as long as you're successful. I love you as long as like life is good. I love you as long as, you know, things are positive, things are happy. I love you when everything's great, right? But like in marriage with the vows, where they say through sickness, through health, and through riches and poor, I believe those are the vows. It's the same with self. You know, when the going gets tough, that's when you really need to embody that love for yourself. It's no longer a case of, well, I hate you now, or whatever, you know, or whatever that internal dialogue is. Unconditional love for self is being able to have that consistency and that that love for yourself, which is there to nurture you when you need it, and is there to, you know, boost when you're feeling great.
I actually kind of think that unconditional love for yourself is, in a way, actually, if you're going to get to that level of complete unconditional love for yourself, it's easier than having complete unconditional love for another person. But that sounds quite counterintuitive, because a lot of people will think, well, I love so many people in my life. I love my family. I love my friends. I love my partner. But I don't love myself. I don't feel that love for myself. But that's because we beat ourselves up around things where we can forgive other people. We find it so hard to forgive ourselves. But truly, if we're in a relationship, like you said, through sickness and through health, and through rich and through poor, but it doesn't say through adultery or like abuse, you know? So if those things come into a relationship, there has to be a point where that love becomes conditional, because that person's walking all over that love and taking that love for granted. So but when it comes to yourself, quite often we can find ourselves cheating on ourselves all the time. We all do it every day, most of the time. Right, I'm going to start a new diet. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this new business where I'm going to phone someone every single day, or I want to start a new hobby. All these things that we all want to do so much, but we don't do because we're human. We're cheating on ourselves. So like, and you don't beat yourself up usually that badly about those things. So it's and that's okay. And
I think it's a two-way flow.
That level of like forgiveness for self is can be a lot easier to say. If you did something that in your past that you just absolutely hate now, you would never do that, then you can quite often live with that. But if someone did that against you, you may never forgive them.
I think it's a two-way flow. I mean, when we did the forgiveness talk, and for anyone who's listening live, you know, all of our presentations are available on our YouTube section. We did one on forgiveness, and I think we quoted the concept of unconditional love in the framework of forgiveness, and we quoted Jesus as well as Buddha and different influences. But it was that phrase which really struck me, was forgive them, for they know not what they do. And in a way, say you are in a relationship, and it could be a romantic one, it could be familial, you know, it comes in many different forms. You know, having unconditional love for someone is not to say I accept being in this situation. You know, if you're in an abusive situation, if you're in a situation where you're physically being abused, emotionally, you know, you have to exit that, or look at ways in which that needs to change effectively. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is effectively is that you can still walk away for both of your sake, because it's, you know, it's hurting you, but it's also perhaps a sickness for them. And you can still love someone. You can still love someone, but change the circumstance that you're in. You may be like, we need to separate. We may need to do counseling, or we need to seek help, or etc., etc. We need to change the dynamic. We need to, but you still can love someone, if you know what I mean. And I think that's what Jesus was kind of saying in a way. It's like, they don't know what they do, but I love them all the same. You know, they mean it, but they don't mean it. You know, it's that kind of weird thing that we were explaining.
It's like,
and I give an example, like Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
It was like what Chris said. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. You carry on.
I was just going to say, like, give you an example. If you're like a parent and you have a child and that child commits murder or manslaughter, you may not like what they did. You might find it, you know, horrific what they did. But do you stop loving them?
That's exactly it. It's like Chris, you said in the presentation last week, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like you, but I still love the whole of you because you are a part of me.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, some really good points made there. So the analogy I gave was like you can love someone completely but not like things about them, or you can love what you do so completely but you might not like aspects of it. You might not like, if you're a parent, you might not like all of your roles as a parent, but you might also love all of those roles because you love being a parent. And you may not. So those things have become unconditional. So there's like, you're not putting conditions on the love. It's like, oh, I don't really like that about you, but I still love that about you. And then it comes down to the issue of acceptance, right? Because if you've accepted your role as a parent completely, that you know there's things you don't like about it, but you're going to do them anyway, and you love being a parent, or you know there's things that your partner might do that you don't like, but you love that about them because it's them. That's unconditional love, and you've accepted that person for who they are. And I think that's like one of the first steps to having unconditional love for yourself, is accepting yourself for who you are.
I think that's a really good point as well. And a lot of the times, I had this discussion earlier today with a good friend about the Piscean age of self-sacrifice. You know, we are just transitioning between Piscean and Aquarian, but very much the expression of love that we're so accustomed to, and is, you know, you can see it within the kind of narratives of a lot of spiritual leaders and prophets that have come during our times, is one of expressing love through self-sacrifice. Like, you know, quite often parents would sacrifice a lot, or they feel like they're sacrificing a lot in order to give their children the best start. They do it out of love. You know, some people might, there's all sorts of things. And it was explained to me in the context of energy healing that actually, instead of giving energy and depleting yourself and not allowing yourself to be nourished, it's about being in a state of overflow. So you fill yourself up to the point with energy and then overflow that into other people. So if we take the concept of love, it's like an overflow of love. You have so much love within yourself that it flows out to other people, as opposed to giving your love away, which is the term, right? Giving your love away. And I think, you know, quite often when we talk about unconditional love for yourself, it's also about, you know, understanding that dynamic that we kind of conditioned towards, which is, you know, if you truly love someone, then you do anything for that someone. Well, if you love yourself, then you do anything for yourself, right? You wouldn't let yourself be depleted of energy. You wouldn't, you know, starve yourself. You wouldn't, you know, put yourself through pain and punishment, because you wouldn't do that to someone you loved. So really, it's a looking at things in a different way. You know, when we talk about unconditional love for someone else, it's like, I would do anything for this person, right? So if you approach the same thing inwardly, do the same for yourself.
Really well said. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like in physicality, we can always, it's always possible for us to have unconditional love for ourselves, but to have unconditional love for ourselves and unconditional love for somebody else, it just doesn't really work, does it? Not always. It can't. It just physically cannot. So
yeah, I think the thing is, there's that unconditional love for other people, which is what I was talking like adultery or abuse. It's like, but quite often people stay in abusive relationships because they love the person they're with, even though they're abusive to them. So maybe saying that love has conditions because of abuse and adultery is actually wrong, because that's why you're heartbroken, because after that person does something against you, you automatically don't love them anymore. You still love them, but the relationship has conditions, because relationships need to have conditions. But the love, I guess, doesn't really have conditions. The love gets torn apart. It's not because there's condition, you've put conditions on it. It's like
it becomes weakened.
It becomes weakened, and then people pull it apart, and then you cannot. The love then fades away over time.
I don't think it died. I mean, there's, for example, you probably know the band Passenger. They did that song "Let Her Go," and I think it's an example of what I'm talking about. It's like sometimes if you love someone or love something, you gotta let it go, let them go, because you want the best for them, and that may not be in the current situation that you're in. That may not be in the kind of environment that you've got together. It may not be the right time or whatever, but you need to let them go. You need to let them grow. You need to be, but you don't stop loving them. It may seem counterintuitive, like if you love someone, why would you ever do that, right? When you're trying to make it work and stuff. But ultimately, if you really do love someone, then you do what is needed for the both of you to let them be in love with themselves. If it's not with you, then let them go.
Yeah, and that love never really goes anywhere. It just changes form.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, we all had exes, right, at some point. And a lot of times when people talk about the ex's story, they talk about, oh, I really didn't like them or whatever. But were you really in love in the first place then? Because for me, I don't know, I've had arguments and all sorts of stuff, and we split up for a reason. But I still think of them fondly, and I love them. Because it doesn't go away. If they said, look, I really need you right now, or whatever, like, I would be like, of course.
Yeah, but you're a really nice person. So I don't think everyone would be the same. Probably. They would probably be like, no, you're not in my life anymore. A lot of people would be like that, I feel like. But I want to get back to the idea of unconditional love for yourself. So, like when we did the presentation last week, mine kind of centered all around self-acceptance and acceptance of love as an idea, right? So accepting ourselves for what we are in our thoughts and our past and our present and our wishes for the future, and accepting ourselves for as we are right now doesn't mean that we can't change for the better. It just means that we are accepting us as we are right now. Maybe we'd like to be something else. Maybe we'd like to be someone else. Maybe we'd like to look a bit different, but we accept things as they are right now. And that's comes from Buddhism and a lot of other ancient teachings. The Buddhists believe that life is suffering. And once you accept that life is suffering, it means that you can rise above it because you don't see it as suffering anymore. You've accepted reality for what it is. You're not trying to hide anything around any corners or in any cupboards or under the rugs, and so enlightenment for the Buddhist is the end of suffering. And I think that doesn't mean you don't, like, the suffering doesn't end. You just don't suffer it anymore. It's like the Christians have their you should shoulder your suffering, because we all have a suffering in life, and that's the Christ story as well. The Jesus Christ story is like there was so much evil surrounding him, but he ascended to the highest he possibly could, and that's like the way to. He's like the the highest ideal for us to all aim for, kind of thing, because it's like no matter how much evil there is in the world, we should aim for the good and try and do good in the world. And that's kind of what, and anyway, let me get to my point. So once we can accept everything as it is, and there is suffering in the world, and sometimes life sucks, and once you can kind of come to that agreement with life and think, all right, cool, that releases a lot of stress and a lot of tension. And then when you can accept things about yourself, do you know what, I don't really like that about myself, but it is me. And once you can get to that level where you accept all of life for what it is, then you can move on to appreciating life. And I don't think you can really appreciate something if you don't accept it for what it is completely. And this is what Zach was talking about in his presentation, was appreciating your space, appreciating your moments. But if you don't really accept everything, you can't really appreciate those things. And once you can start to appreciate those things, you can start to love those things, even if you don't really like them. There might be things in your life that you don't like, things that are going on that are stressing you out. But if you can accept them as part of your reality, then you can appreciate them as part of your reality. Oh, this is just part of my experience called life. And yeah, that bit's the hard bit. That it's like, oh, it takes this real effort, that bit, to work out. But it's like, if everything was so easy, we'd go out and find something hard to do. That's why we play video games and stuff.
Yeah. Was it you who told me about the 3 snails? Do you know the story of the 3 snails?
No.
Okay.
I
really like this one. So on a riverbank, there were 3 snails, and one of them was like, "There's got to be more than this. Like, I feel like I need to move on," but they were stuck on this riverbank, very small patch of land, and that was their lot in life. And one day, one of the snails said to the other 2, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna, despite every sense in my snail body telling me that the river is dangerous, etc., etc., I need to go. And the other 2 were like, "What are you doing? Like, you could die, etc., etc." And yes, he was like, "Yes, I could." And one day he went to the edge and rolled in. And as he started to sink, he was like, "I'm dying now." And he got to the bottom of the riverbed, and he was like, "This is the choice I made, and I accept this, and I will die." And then as he accepted that, he started to float and bobbed up to the surface of the river and let the river carry him to where he needed to go. Him or her, doesn't matter. But it's that kind of, if you take that analogy and say, well, the river is the flow of life, for all of the fears and all of the obstacles that we face, or the perceived obstacles that we face, it's about accepting and surrendering to that. What happens, happens. It's part of the process. It's part of growth. It's part of your journey. Mm-hmm. Just let yourself be carried by the water. It's not to say don't engage with the universe, but at the same token, if you're saying, this is it, this is always what's going to be, I can't do anything else because I've created these barriers. Sometimes you have to just surrender. And the word surrender has such connotations to it, because think about, defeat, etc. But actually it's a beautiful kind of acknowledgement of the kind of symbiotic nature of how the universe works. And surrendering to that process of working together as a co-creator.
Speaking of surrender, that was beautiful. Thank you. I love that story of the snails.
I love the story.
Stories are good. Chris, that saying that you shared in the presentation last week, and you reminded us of again today, about the Buddhist saying of life is suffering. Now, how I'm putting a twist on that is that it's like we're having to realize the things that we don't want, the suffering part of life, in order to then accept that legit and then find what we do prefer, which is that enlightenment part that suffering, enlightenment. Yeah, I suppose it's those two terms that I'm having to kind of mold within. It's trying to understand the meaning behind it, because there is a truth in that saying, and I'm just trying to see what it is.
There's a quote from Jim Rohn. It's we'll all experience pain in our lives, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So I think that that ties into what you're saying in a way, but it's also like that's like once you accept life is suffering, it's like there's only two ways to go, and they both suck, but you have to pick. Yeah, like
I see. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah, because it's like it's really coming back to that perception as well of like, right, yes, life can be suffering if we choose it to be suffering. And it's just a way of saying in that Buddhist quote that, yeah, life is suffering if you choose to see it that way.
Like life, like, yeah, it can be painful. Like the pain of discipline. It's like, or you could have the joy of discipline. Like it's how you see it. It's how you perceive it. Change your perception of it.
Yeah, completely. It's all about perception.
I shared a quote from Albus Dumbledore last week in the presentation. Yeah. Understanding is the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be recovery. So that's like the understanding is like what changes your perception. Like once you can learn things and understand things differently, you start to see things differently. And when you can do that, you can accept different things.
I mean, going back to what you said about the Buddhists and what they talk about suffering, it's one way of looking at it, like Zach was saying. There is a book called the Hermetica, which was written by the Egyptian Hermes. And this was written centuries ago. And in it, he writes about the dance of the zodiac, how we are all subject to the dance of the zodiac, which is ruled by individual gods, the planets, the systems, until we're able to transcend and connect with the higher self of Atman, the universal consciousness. And then we free ourselves from that dance. Now, I guess what is meant by that is like, we are incarnated beings, and each incarnation has a different zodiac constellation that you're born under, and a different set of lessons. But again, it's how you perceive it. Like the Buddhists may say, a life is suffering. Life is obviously challenging. There are certain planets that would, that will give you challenge, but it's designed for growth. It's really all about perspective, and sometimes you just need to go through it. And as hard as it seems at the time, and there are times when you feel like you're this close to breaking, or that you've broken, and you come through it, and then in hindsight, you can see the lessons and the treasure that was there amongst all of the other emotions that you may have felt, the pain, the worry, the anger, the frustration, etc. And with life, like with anything, you can read all the books that you want. You can do all of the kind of practices that is meant to enlighten oneself or to be a good human being. But ultimately, you need to experience it. These things that you go through, and this may sound really out there, is designed for you to challenge you, to create that friction, that tension, for you to grow and be the person that your higher self has asked you to be before you even came into this thing. So it really, when the Buddha says suffering, it's really, well, that's one way of looking at it, but someone could be in complete acceptance, like you say, Chris. And it's getting really dark here, so I apologize.
It's cool. It's like it's the terminology again. We're using English language to explain these ideas, which are really like beyond words. So it's very limiting to use language like to say life is suffering. It's like, because but I guess the thing is, like the suffering ends when you reach enlightenment. So when you can realize that suffering is life, that is part of life, that gives us meaning and purpose and responsibility, then that suffering becomes your joy.
Chris, are you enlightened?
I don't. Good question. In that sense, maybe, because I see suffering as something that is necessary, and I actually kind of embrace now, because I feel like it's where that growth comes in, and it's where you come alive. It's where you meet your shadow, because you find parts of yourself that you don't know existed yet. Yeah. So okay, back to unconditional love for self. So in the presentation, I talked about acceptance of yourself and your reality in entirety, and I talked about the concept of love, and that unconditional love, like to say, if we use the term love without limits, say, but it's kind of nonsensical, because of course love has no limits. Love in itself is unlimited. It's unconditional. It's us that puts limits on love.
That's a very good point.
And it's like, oh, I want to feel loved, but so why don't you feel loved? Oh, because I don't like this about myself. I don't like this about myself. Those are the conditions you're putting on love. And once you release your own conditions from love being itself will be unconditional, unlimited. It will flow into your life. And once you can accept that love, once you can comprehend, like you can understand and accept the idea that love is completely unlimited, it has no boundaries, then just me talking about it, I feel love within me. Because it's when you realize something that is completely unlimited, it's in all time, in all space. It permeates everything. It's within us all, and it's within everything. And we can tap into that feeling, that energy, through different exercises, which is kind of into Zach's presentation from last week as well.
Sweet. Yeah, good. Okay. Are you ready for the how-to section?
Well, let's talk about how would it work? Like what like.
Well, actually, it's really interesting you should say that, because this morning I was saying about when you give light healing, how often it's if it's distance, you act as a conduit, and there's this mindset. I really didn't think about it until recently, actually, that it's almost like there's a finite source of energy, which is, when you think about it, that's not really the case. Like, and it's like, well, I will give this to another to heal them. But really, when we're talking about love and unconditional love, it's the infinity. It's the dynamo. It's the self-generating dynamo. So don't be afraid of asking the universe for love for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's self-love. That's having love for yourself. It's not a case of, oh, I give to others and I give the gifts of the universe to others because I love them. Yes, but you too are able to, as a light being and as a symbiotic part of the light and the universe, you too are able to access that for you. And if in terms of your higher self, of course they want that for you. You don't want to harm yourself by depleting your own energy. It's a case of understanding how that energy works. They call it, there's something like the Taurus field, I believe. And it's almost like similar to that. It's just generating energy, which is there when you need it, whenever you need it. So it's opening yourself up, opening up your chakras, particularly your heart chakra, to that concept of receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people find it very hard to receive in that particular sense. Very good at giving in Piscean way, but receiving may be an issue. And that's a process of, in my opinion, of self-love and unconditional love is acknowledging that you can receive.
Accepting that. I think it's like accepting you're worthy of love, because we're all worthy of love. And love is, like, we'd all agree that love is, so love, what is love in itself? It's a vibration, it's an energy that is everywhere in the universe. I mean, everything is energy in the universe, and so love is just a frequency of that energy. So we can tap into that, and we can just let that flow into our lives. As soon as we accept that we're worthy of that love, we'll feel it. I've only just put the chat on, so we've had a few comments, but we can't see them now. So if anyone's still here,
hi Thomas. Hi Thomas. Hi Steph. Hi Vasu. Thank you for commenting. I did see your comments come through, but yeah, it's just the chat overlay that needs to be on for them to show up at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
on the screen. Yeah.
But yeah.
Next one.
Do you remember what the questions were?
The questions or the comments? The comments were just general points, really. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah. Well, thank you all for watching and give us a love heart if you can feel the love.
My question to everyone here would be, do you feel like you have to stay in your pain anymore? Let's say, for example, when we are feeling pain, and I mean emotional pain.
It ties in with the talk that we did on forgiveness. You know, what is pain? What is it? Self-punishment that you're talking about? Because I think it's, again, a lot to do with perception, but also, why are you in pain? Why do you deem you need forgiveness? Because, like I say, me and Chris could be in the same room, could have done the same thing. Chris is in tears for years. And I'm like, Chris, what the hell? You know, why are you so cut up about this? Doesn't affect me at all, right? It's literally about perspective, your own roots that are within you. If you imagine us like as trees, a lot of times when we do meditations, visualizations, it's like, imagine roots going down into the ground from your feet, right? But what if yourself is just an intricate layer of like layers and roots and branches and flowers and all sorts of things, and you cultivate whatever you know, as a co-creator, you cultivate what you sow. So in the same way that the garden of yourself could be sowed with poisonous ivy and seeds, then that is what you'll sow. But that doesn't mean that it will always have to be that way. So if something affects you and doesn't affect someone else, it's something that is within you that has taken seed and grown. And what you really want to do is take awareness, bring your awareness to that point. What is the root of this? Why do I feel pain? Why do I feel guilt? Why cannot I forgive myself? And completely remove the layers from it till you get to the root, and you deal with the root, so that it's no longer the case that a situation, whatever it will be, could be very similar in the future. You will no longer have that hook from which it embeds itself, because the root is gone. And you can replace that with whatever you want it to be. In Tantra, they call it it's a reversal of the seed. Like, the poisonous seeds can become nectar. It's literally a shift of perspective.
So you would be someone who would choose to feel better if you were feeling bad, instead of just sitting in your pain?
I would try to learn from it, as in, like, okay, I feel pain. It's like, for example, Zach, if you said to me something and I felt pain from it, as in it hurt me, that's a hurtful comment, right? I would thank you. Sounds so weird. Okay, maybe not in the moment, but I'd be like, thank you for the lesson, because that struck something within me. Why? What does it resonate with? Because it's almost like you're showing me my own areas that I may would want to work on.
Sure.
My throat really hurts, by the way. Sorry.
Do you need to get a glass of water?
No, it's fine. I just like, why? It's on a certain side of my body, so maybe that's telling me something.
Mm-hmm. My answer to that question, can you say it again? Would I choose to stay in pain?
Are you aware that you can choose how you want to feel in any moment? Or if you question. Or that you no longer have to, or that you no longer have to sit in depression, anxiety, or anger for any longer than is needed?
Yeah, I'm definitely aware of that. I also think, like, back to the pain question, and this ties into this question, obviously. Things need to be felt out for a certain amount of time, like a mourning period, like not mourning as in the start of the day, as in like someone who is mourning the death of a loved one. Like, that needs to happen for a certain amount of time. Like, people needing to feel those emotions.
They do, but then what about when someone, that mourning process, what if there's a way to actually speed up the mourning process without bypassing any emotions?
For certain things, then definitely would be good. But I think there's a healthy time limit for sure. And I think for mourning, I don't think I would want to bypass those things in a way. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you want to mourn someone. Like, if a loved one has died, and you want to really feel all of those emotions and go through them all. But say you lose a business and you feel like crap about it and you're depressed, then yeah, I mean, that needs to be exacerbated as soon as possible. And at the end of the day, if you can, I still think there needs to be a certain amount of negative emotion in a way, because if let's say everything's going wrong in someone's life and they're still really happy about it because they're overly positive, a bit too positive. I mean, I love positivity, but that person is a little bit naive optimist, you know? Everything is not going well for them, but they're still
if they're super happy and they're super optimistic and they're content and they're happy, then is their life going wrong?
Maybe it actually is, though. Maybe it actually is. But let's say if they just for one moment got fed up and unsatisfied, they might change something and make a change and make something different happen. You know, because like at certain times, oh, nice lighting. Say if you're in a job that you're not really that happy with, you know, but it's all right. It's like, and you're just like ticking on, oh, everything will be all right, but you're not thriving. At some point, you need to kind of go into work one day and think, do you know what? Screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm fed up. And then you will make a change. Otherwise, it's like you might not ever have that like crisis, you know, in a way that forces us to make a big change in our lives. So, if something is dragging out, then it definitely needs to be, and it's hindering progress. Then I think it definitely needs to be.
I'll tell you one thing, right? Like, to take the mourning thing. The first funeral that I went to was not in this country. I didn't know. Never been to a funeral. I've seen them on films, you know, anecdotes, whatever. Never been to one before. But I felt that I had to be sad. I felt like I had to display a certain amount of emotion in that moment to show that I was emotionally connected to that moment and to other people and to the person who's passed. Now, I got myself into this mindset, and then I cried, and then afterwards I was told, "Why did you cry? You're not meant to cry." I didn't know that. Cultural traditions, you weren't meant to. And I'm like, what the hell? I thought that was what we're meant to do, right? No one told me, oh, by the way, in this country, we're not allowed to cry. Like, it's not the process. And what I mean to say by that is, it's really how you perceive things. Like, for example, you use the business example. And I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Like, it's a mindset. If you have a business, doesn't work out, cut your losses, what did you learn from it? You do it again. Another person with a different mindset would be like, oh, you know, I lost everything, I failed, I'm a failure. And they might sit with that and never start a business again. It's a mindset, right? So the same way with death and mourning, if you believe that we are light beings and we're incarnated, then really what's happening is that soul that you love is moving on to their next, is going back to source and then coming back into their next incarnation, whenever that would be. And I know that can strike a lot of chords in people where they go, oh, I don't believe that, or I don't want to, that's not the appropriate time and place to say it. But, you know, at the moment I do have a loved one, someone who's been very inspirational to me and actually caused, you know, a lot of challenge for me, who is in end of life care, you know, and I have said goodbye. But it's how you perceive it. I remember when my father passed, and my grandma, who's his mother, had a completely different view on the situation than I did, and a lot of the family. You know, there I was bawling my eyes out and, you know, being an absolute wreck, and she was very different. Who was right? There was no right or wrong. We both loved him very, 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 very much. You know, there's not to say that because she dealt with it differently than I did, that she didn't love him any less. But it really comes down to that, whether it's death, whether it's business, whether it's a lot of things, it really is just perspective. All about perspective. You choose how you engage in this world. You choose how to create.
Yeah, I agree, but I have one thing to say. That the bit going back to the business thing, it's like those. So yeah, like you said, losses, take what you can, like learn what you can, and then move on. And I think the thing is, emotion inspires action. So if like you've done a business and it failed, and you're like, right, what did I learn from that? It's all right, everything's good, moving on to the next one. And it fails, okay, everything's good, what did I learn from that? Move on to the next one. And this happens and continues. At some point I feel like if you go like, what the hell's going on? What is going on here? And have this outburst of energy, like of maybe anger, frustration, whatever it is, you know, those aggression, you know, that is innate within us, then it's going to initiate action in ways that you wouldn't have previously noticed or done. So you may, and you say, like, some people may have just been able to do that right off the bat. Like, okay, no, I know exactly what changes I need to make here. But other people they'll be like, oh, okay, optimism, stay positive, I'm moving on to the next business. But at some point they might need to just tear everything down and go, what's going on here? Why isn't this working out? Anyway, we've gone off a massive tangent from Zach's question.
Cool.
which aren't really, so we're talking about more like stuck emotions, right? So if you're stuck and you're feeling, those things come up often for no reason, potentially, right? So like depression, or like just feeling down, or like upset.
Really, I mean any kind of emotion. And it's interesting, thank you so much for your answers in regards to, you know, when you're mourning, is that kind of emotion you really want to kind of cherish, even though it's painful. It's like it's important. It's like that loved one that's passed. Is, you know, we have that emotional connection. We want to feel out every layer of what needs to be felt there. But what I'm sharing is, what I want to share is that through bringing in that love energy into ourselves, into our hearts, it can just make any difficult emotional period much easier, and for us to be able to overcome it much quicker as well. And it's just something that not many people know about. Hardly anyone knows about this, and that's why I'm wanting to share it more, like last week and now as well. Because say if someone does pass, and we are feeling that, you know, feeling that sadness, that loss, that grief, we can bring in that love and also embody those lessons as well, like you said, like the mental meanings, and adjusting our identity and our ego to that change as well that's happened in our lives, and combining that with the love energy affirmations and bringing in that love. It just can allow us to start feeling better very quickly, and to transmute so much faster, rather than just the other parts of this as well is we can sit in those emotions for as we've said, days, months, years. Sometimes people will be depressed for years on end, simply because that emotion never really gets the love that it needs. And this is the other part. We just, on this planet, we just generally don't know that to feel better, all we need is love. It's that simple, and it's that easy. It's just doing it, bringing in that love.
So if we were going to, Ingrid said, I think it depends on the level of susceptibility of every person. So I guess that was talking about the people going through those different emotionally traumatic experiences and how different people would deal with that.
I agree with that. I agree with that in the sense that, for example, how you deal with something now, Zach and Chris, would probably be very different to how you dealt with that same situation maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes.
Because you're not the same person. You know, you've gone through a period of growth and challenge and emotions, and you know, I would say the same about myself. You know, we are forever growing and adapting and learning. So it could be that at certain points of your journey, you need to react in a certain way in order to understand. You know, it might be that at this moment in time, you're given a challenge and you react in a certain way. And then in a few years' time, it comes to you again in a different way. And you may see it completely differently. So it does depend on where we are all at in our own journeys. And actually, I don't think it's purely down to age either. Because I've met some really young people who are old souls. And, you know, just being blown away, really.
Oh, yes.
I used to think, you know, as you get older, you get more mature, but, you know, you meet a lot of old people that you're like, seriously? And likewise, a lot, you know, a lot of young people who are like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
But Ingrid, in regards to your comment there, I think it depends on the level of susceptibility of every person. I see, if you mean that in terms of what I think you mean it in terms of, it's like, I can still say to that though that it's always going to come back to the same thing, is that we're all human and that we can all bring in that love, and it's going to change us all in the same way. But of course, that comes down to then how much we've got to work through in that moment and on that particular layer at that particular time in our lives, and basically where we are at. But always coming back to that same thing, if we can bring in, the more love we bring in, the more it's going to level us up, and it's just going to work anyway regardless. So, but yeah, I get everyone's going to be slightly different.
I would say like doing this exercise, right? So if we're bringing in love, or we're focusing on our heart center, the center of our chest, whereas all our love comes from. People say follow your heart, you know, where like follow your passion, what you truly want, the person you truly want. You feel it all in your chest because you have an energy center in your chest, which is sacred and just glows, and you can measure the energy that it gives off. And you have more neural pathways going from your heart to your brain than from your brain to your heart. So the heart tells the brain more than the brain tells the heart, which is very interesting. And that's like physiological neurology. So, and when you do these exercises, you bring in love and you focus on your chest center, because where you put your focus is where you're putting your energy. Then you are energizing that chest center, and you're creating a bigger energy field, and you can measure those energy fields. You create, like Mia was talking about earlier, we will have a magnetic field that comes through our body, a toroidal field like a donut, and so does the earth, going round and round. And the more you focus on that chest center, the more you bring love into it, right? The energy field grows. It grows and becomes more and more powerful. And when you're next to someone, their energy field affects your energy field, and your energy field affects their energy field. So if you're in a loving place, if you're feeling love and you have love in abundance in your body, radiating, literally, actually radiating magnetically out from your body, when you're in proximity to another person, they're feeling that. You're raising up their emotions. You're making them feel better. So, like we said, but here's a question for you, Zach. If you could feel like that all the time, would you want to?
It can become as you said earlier on, the word naivety. It can create an ignorance if we're fully feeling, and even an arrogance, if we're feeling so much love within ourselves. The ego can also kind of thrive off of that a little bit, to the point where it can become an arrogance, and that then can create a whole host of own issues. So I do feel as well, and I know within myself, like it's important to be able to feel the heavier emotions, because it's our guidance system. It's telling us what is a good direction, what's perhaps not such a good direction, and everything in between. So yeah, I wouldn't want to feel love all of the time, because that could lead to naivety and getting caught out.
So I disagree. I would like to feel love all the time. Yeah.
Okay, you would?
Yeah.
Interesting. Right. So the reason I asked that, I want to ask you more about the naivety and the ego part, because I don't really understand your perspective of that yet. But the way I see it, the reason I asked that question, and I'm glad that I have two different perspectives, is because life is all about experience, right? So life isn't measured by the days we live; it's by the experiences we experience. So, like, if you I feel like you should feel everything, every different thing that happens to you in life, the suffering, the pain, the regret, the heartbreak, the grief, the ups, the downs, all of it needs to be felt. But the baseline should be love, right? The baseline should be high, but like there needs to be a flexibility there. And I feel like maybe if you got to the end of your life and was like, I loved life. I spent my entire life in love. Love was my life. Would you be happy about that? Would you think?
Yes. Because look, this is the thing, right?
Would you, or do you think you may have thought, I haven't experienced everything I could have?
I think, okay, so you can have, so like your love for your partner, right, is always going to be love. Like you could feel pain, you could feel sadness with them, you could feel grief, but there's always going to be love there, right? Like it doesn't go away. It's like it's an underlying current, which just is, right? but you still feel everything else. If you stub your toe, ouch, that hurts. If you something sad, you will cry. You know, it still allows you to be a human being. But you know, to say you don't want to feel love all the time means what? You want to switch it off? Like you just you know.
That's another point. Yeah, like so Ingrid just said you wouldn't recognize happiness if you didn't see or felt sadness, and I think that is like you wouldn't know what to compare it with. It's like if you were happy constantly, you would be like, what is happiness? Yeah,
I agree, Ingrid. What I'm saying is that you can experience the myriad of emotions whilst also loving.
Yeah. So you like you kind of reiterated what my point was, like so if you're in a relationship, even though it's hard times and everything, but the love is always there. It's behind everything and it's underneath everything, and it's holding everything together. And that's what I said as well about love being the baseline. It's like we need to deal with all the stuck emotions, all those emotions that are holding us down, that we're dragging along through life. So we can, so love can be our baseline. So we're like, because like if we've got all these trauma, we're going along down here like this, and this down here is depression and shame and guilt and all this horrible stuff. And when we start to release it, it lets us go up, and we're up here now in love, you know. And sometimes we still go down and we feel all those bad things, but then we come back up and we stay there, rather than popping into love for half a day when you see someone you like and then coming back down to the normal. You're going the other way around.
But we're saying that love is, you know, great, it's happy stuff. Love is more than that. Why do you cry and you mourn and you feel like your heart is ripped out when someone you love passes? Why do you feel that? Because you love them, right?
Yeah.
So you love them, but it's like, oh, I'm, you know, it might be the greatest day of your life when you get married, or when your child is first born, right? That is love as well. But if that's taken away and something tragic happens, that is also love. The emotion that is attached to it is because of love. And so you go through all of the myriad spectrums, the roller coaster of emotions, because of love. Can you imagine not having love and experiencing life through that spectrum? How would you feel? What would the depth of feelings really be?
Yeah, it would be horrible. Truly horrible.
I don't think we'd really be able to exist here if there was no love. So,
yeah.
In regards to the reason why I said that I wouldn't want to be feeling love all of the time. Now, there's two sides to what I mean, because where we're heading to as a collective, at least at this particular time, I mean, the whole universe is constantly striving to ascend itself into higher degrees where it's embodying more of the source to which it once came from. And that's a given. We're either always constantly ascending or descending in terms of our consciousness. But at this time, there's a faction of our planet, of the humans upon it, and that are ascending into a new density, fourth density, which is all about love. But even in that density, because we're currently in the third density, even in the fourth density, which exists within the plane of the fifth dimension, is all about mastering love. So even then, we're not still 100% of the time fully feeling unconditional love towards ourselves. We just have to, it's an ongoing process. There's further layers of consciousness that we have to evolve ourselves through until we've mastered love. So I mean by this as well, in terms of why it's not always a good thing for us to be constantly feeling love within ourselves, is what I said about the arrogance part of it. And the arrogance part is, and I've had this myself, but so high on love energy, I've brought so much of it into myself. I'm like, this feels so good, and I feel really amazing, and I feel this and that, and I feel great. And it kind of, it, how do I describe it? It just becomes an arrogance. It becomes like it's a cockiness. It's a
like
cockiness.
you feel like you can't fail, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, it's an invincibility. Yeah, exactly. I feel so strong. It's like the ego gets boosted up from it, from all that love energy, which is,
really, I mean, if you look at it a different way,
be a helpful thing.
If you look at it a different way, what the hell is wrong with feeling that like good about yourself? What is wrong with that? Like, in a way, where it sounds like I shouldn't feel this good. I mean, like, it's egotistical for me to think that I'm this. You know, I don't know. I think, the heart is the empress, and it's if you are feeling this beautiful love for yourself and it empowers you, what human being has the right to say to you that's selfish? I mean, is it simply a case of that you just aren't able to fully accept that gift for yourself?
I don't think it's potentially egotistical, because like to feel love like that, there's an immense amount of humility as well. I believe there should be.
It's that amount of love. That's the point I need to get at. Thank you for saying humility, because when we're feeling so much love in ourselves, it can become that kind of like we stop having so much compassion and humility in some cases, not always, for those around us, because
Can you give an example?
I think maybe
if we're hoarding all of that love energy for ourselves and we're not giving it out, we have to. What I mean by that is like we can build up all this love energy. That's beautiful. That's a really good thing to do. But we need to let it flow through us to others so that they can experience it as well through us. So like that overflowing cup thing. That's the arrogance. If we hoard that love energy ourselves, that is arrogance. Then
but what does it look like, Zach?
That's not what. It's basically you're being a god who's not sharing God's juice. What is
that? Okay, but what does that look like? Because you say, give it out, etc. What does that look like? And who has the manual to say what that looks like? Oh, by the way, if you're overflowing with God's juice, this is what you do.
Just being of service. Just by being of service.
Yeah,
so this comes back to unconditional love. This comes back to it, right? Yeah. And what I was talking about earlier about overflow. For example, we could all give examples. If we go into this room and ask everyone who's watching as well, give an example of being in service to another person, right? And a lot of times you'll rack your brain and go, well, this would be what is typically a very spiritual thing to do in helping others. We can all think of examples, right? But really, it's unqualified. If you're feeling with this love for yourself, just being around the people is being in service to other people, because they will feel that energy. They will feel the energy. Like it was very interesting when you said you become numb or something, or inconsiderate to the needs of others or something like that. You're not showing as much compassion, right? I would say you're more in tune with how the universe works. Instead of going, oh, I must cry and I must, beg this person for forgiveness, you see it for what it is. You see that situation differently from a perspective of the heart, and how to best serve that person may not be what society tells you is the way that you should behave in that way.
I think having the arrogance of like, oh, I need to just focus on myself because I need to feel good. It's like that's fine for a while. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you need to be selfish. You need to, like, if things are just like chaos in life, sometimes you need to be selfish so you can get things in order, so you can bring enough love into your life. And you can be selfish now so you can be selfless later.
But it's the thing, right? Why do we do what we do? Why do we do these talks? Why do we reach out to people? It's to help people be that person to embody that energy. If everyone on this planet was to be, in inverted commas, selfish and embody that, able to embody that heart energy, then that's what we want, right?
No, in a way.
I want that. I want to live in love.
But to do things like to have so much love in yourself that you do everything in your life from the heart, like every interaction. And do you know what you said? Like, the funny thing about you said about service is like everything, like every interaction with another person is energy transference, and we only have one like currency, right? And that's energy. So like every interaction we have with another person, we're doing them a service or a disservice. We're either taking their energy, or like maybe unfairly, or we're giving them energy altruistically. So it's everything we do is a service. Every word you speak to another person is an energy transference. Every smile, every look, standing next to someone, they're in your energy field. You're exchanging energy with that person. And I feel like you can definitely, that's like maybe, Zach, like the next level of like, right, once you feel like you have enough love, you can give, because I think a lot of people can feel like if they give too much love out, it depletes their love and they feel exhausted, kind of thing. But I think you can have an abundance of love within yourself and then do so much service for other people, and from the heart. And when I was in Portugal, when I went to Monte Sahaja, where Muji Baba, there was this one girl, and she said, we were in a group and she was talking, and she said, the best way to like live in this place, this spiritual place, in normal life, throughout life, is to just everything you do, everything you say, to do it from the heart. Like imagine it coming from the heart. Every word you speak, everything you do is all coming from that place. And I think that's an amazing way to try and do that, because when we're in our meditations and we're harvesting and cultivating love, we're focusing on that center, bringing in the prana, bringing in all that chi into that center to energize it. And then when we go out in the world, we can use that in the ways we want to use it.
I think we are so caught up with what is like the word selfish and selfless. If you really want to look at it, right, like a Buddhist monk, right, you'd say that they live, the Buddha is about compassion, right? But if you look at what the monks do, are they living in service to others? Is their whole life dedicated to other people? It's not. It's not. Nothing wrong with that. They're very peaceful, they're very compassionate, they're very loving, and they're very, self-aware. They do a lot of meditations. It's fantastic. Nothing wrong with that. But it's that self-love which radiates. So they don't go out and do like, public services. You don't see monks fixing roads or, mending bikes and doing stuff for people from the heart. It's not how it works. It's just they embody love, and it's through the collective embodiment of love that we raise the vibration. You encourage other people to follow. It's just, the thing is, right, is that phrase where people, in an argument, when people go, you do you and I'll do me, yeah? Like, that's really what it is. You just do you. There's nothing wrong with that. You do you to the best of your ability, to the most authentic self. Don't lie to yourself. Don't hide from yourself. Do you. And that's it.
As long as that doesn't harm anyone else.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's like, all right, I'm gonna do me and you do you, and like I'm just gonna barge everyone out of the way because that's what I want to do.
But then why are you barging everyone else out of the way? There's a root to everything, right? So it's like when I say do you, I mean look beyond the veil. It's like we have this idea of like this is who I am. If I said to you, Zach, describe to me who Zach is, you might say, well, Zach is 5'11", 6 foot. This is what I do for a living. These are my aspirations stuff. And that's all just like, that is the kind of like player profile or avatar profile of Zach, right? But who really is Zach? Do you even know? And that's what I mean about you do you. And I'll posit the same question to you, Chris. You know, it's, do you really know who Chris is? To the core. And if you can say yes, then
I am formless.
Zach. So Chris is my. Chris is.
What was that?
Something fell over in the corner. Yeah, Chris is my name. So it's like, I am not my name. I am not my body. I am not my hand. I have a hand. I have a body. I have a name. Those are things that I have.
So what are you?
I'm the player. The master can. No, I'm not. Well, I'm the observer. Truly, the observer. Really.
What is that funny?
The thing is, I can say that. I was just about to say I'm the master controller, but the thing is, we're not really master controllers because.
Wow.
Because if we're master controllers, if we could control our own selves, like control my body exactly how I want and control my mind exactly how I want, because I'm the controller of my things that I own, my mind and my body and my name, then we would just do all the things.
No, but that's the thing. We can. We can. If you look through,
but we don't. We go. I'm gonna start a diet. Yeah. Next day, stuffing your face with cake. Or,
no, but I mean, if you look through
all these things that we want to do, and we think we should have complete control over ourselves, which we can, but we don't, because we're a collection of all these different kind of ideas and things. And that's why, like, so if you think about the zodiac and like the Hermetica and the gods are all the different bodies in the solar system. And so like Mars is the god of war, and when Mars takes control of you, you get angry and you see red. Sometimes when you're angry, you say things that you don't mean. You say things that you wouldn't say normally, and that's because you're not being yourself. And it is almost like something else has taken control of you. So that's not a primitive idea. It's actually a really deep and crazy idea to think that we have all these different kind of personalities, and when they take over us and we do different things, that we are not being ourselves. So
that's the acknowledgement. It's like, so what is that? That is the layer that surrounds you, I suppose. Because I mean, but we can observe it all. Like we can say, oh, I am hungry, I am angry. It's like, okay, what's observing me being angry? Yeah, there are layers, right? For example, the sign Scorpio. There are 3 symbols that represent Scorpio. The scorpion is the base layer, the snake is the middle, and then the eagle or the phoenix is the highest symbol of the sign Scorpio. Now that suggests an evolution of self, right? At the very base level, Scorpion, what does it do? It stings you. It's you know, people operating on that frequency of a sign can be very paranoid, very defensive, very vindictive, can be very hurtful with what they say. As you go up and up, the eagle is all about transcending those. So, I mean, even within astrology and ancient traditions, there is this process of understanding the layers of self and what it is to be human and what it is to be a being of the universe. And if you really look at yoga that we have today, the physical postures, etc., is a dilution of what is an intrinsic system. There are yoga sutras and yogis who have incredible feats that you just wouldn't think possible. Mastery over their body, you know, not needing to breathe, not needing to eat or drink. You know, there's a lot of capabilities that the human just doesn't believe is possible. But if we really believe in the concept of being a co-creator, then why isn't that possible? And why is it possible for certain individuals who have mastered, as Zach was saying, the kind of the energy of love or the energy of the universe? Now, I read this book, really interesting book, to do with the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and connecting with the goddess energy. And he was a yogi in India many years ago. Not many people know of this one, actually, but was devoted to getting closer to the goddess energy. He was physically born male, but he underwent through this process where he actually, without any hormone intervention or chemicals or whatever, actually became a woman in many respects, and understood, was able to see from a different perspective that divine feminine energy. Now, I mention that because it's like, well, physiologically, you shouldn't be able to change. You can go on a diet, you can do plastic surgery, etc., etc. But actually, we have more control over ourselves than we actually believe. It's like this, right? When someone is mad, what we deem mad, you know, psychotic or whatever, you can have the smallest person flip cars, superhuman strength, we call it. You need massive, like you need groups of guys to hold them down, and it shouldn't be possible. But what is the difference? They just removed the filter, because consequence no longer maybe exists in the same realm, and they took off the safety valve, and they've been able to access and perform in a way that wasn't possible before. It's the mind. When in the book Dune, when Paul Atreides says fear is the mind killer, it really is. If you want to be the observer and the controller, you be the controller, but be aware of what safety parental controls you have on that controller right now, because you're probably going, I don't want the safety parental control one, I want to play full throttle, right? And that's where the line blurs, where those who are deemed mad, or those who are deemed hermits or spiritual eccentrics or whatever, you know, living a life which is honing themselves, it's really just removing the filter.
Mm. Yeah. So
Very much so.
everything I said on one level is right. But for most of us, we would feel like that. Like there's so many things that we can't do that we want to do because the mind gets in the way, the habitual way of the mind. It wants to just keep ticking over in the way it can. But there is ways, and it's possible for us to completely radically change. There's a I read something about a schizophrenic, right? And in one personality, normal, healthy, and then when he'd shift to another personality, he'd actually show he had diabetes. And like within seconds of switching from one to the other, and people's eye colors changing as well for when they're schizophrenic with different personalities. So like we have an immense amount of control over our minds and our bodies if we can bring ourselves into that state and train ourselves to be able to do it, or kind of lose our minds and do it unintentionally, which is not ideal.
That's also multiple souls kind of coming and embodying within a single body, so that can be an influence as well. But yeah, definitely, we also, as you say, like we also have the ability to change these features of us.
Yeah. I mean, look this way, right? Let's say tomorrow, you've seen the film Big, right? With Tom Hanks.
Big.
If you haven't, I recommend it. It's a lovely film. But imagine you wake up tomorrow and Zach, you have my body. I have Chris's body. Chris, you have Zach's body, right? You wake up, you know nothing different. You're probably not looking at yourself or whatever. You get up and you go to the mirror, or you pass the mirror and you think, the fuck? It's a shock, right? It's literally everything that you believed and you understood is now completely different. Your reality is completely bent. And that's the thing, because like if I did wake up as S.A. Chris, right, how would I process that? Could I process that? That's what I'm really interested in, because if we are incarnates and we've come into this world and we are co-creators, then reality can change. I'm not saying that I will wake up as you, but it's like I've had a moment in my life where I went up to a mirror. I went to a mirror and I saw myself, but I saw myself as just skin, and I could see behind it, and it really felt like I was wearing a costume. And that's a really weird sensation to feel, like, and where did that come from? And why did I feel that way? And would I want to feel that way again? Like, these are all things that I'm very interested in. What would it be like to wake up in another person's body? How would I process that? That's what I'm interested in. How does the brain cope? How does the brain function? How does the brain adapt?
That's the thing, the astral body. If we're going to take our astral body and plop ourselves into a different body, we're not going to take the brain with us. So a lot of the memory we're not going to carry. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how that would play out.
Absolutely. So you made a point, and I was going to tie it back in to having unconditional love for yourself, which has been the topic of this talk. And once again, we've gone off on many tangents. Very interesting and fascinating, all of them, though. Yeah. So, have we got any last points about this? About this topic, how to have unconditional love for yourself? I think
yeah, I do. Okay. I think first of all, knowing that we are connected to source itself, we are connected to everyone and everything, and that we are never alone. We are always loved by source itself because we are source. And having unconditional love for ourselves, just not having to judge ourselves so harshly, and just having unconditional love for ourselves, to me, means forgiving ourselves for everything that we're holding on to, and that is emotions. Almost 90% of it is emotions, and 10% is the mental. So yeah, how to have unconditional love for yourself. Bring love into yourself. Simple as that.
I would say, imagine the love that you feel for another, whoever they may be, or whatever that may be for, and project that to yourself. Because there's only ever going to be one of you. No matter how many similarities someone somewhere in the world may have to you, you're always going to be unique, uniquely you. And that is to be celebrated. It's, as a collective, I am very grateful for every single soul that is with us at this moment in time. Because we are going through this together. And it's actually what I said maybe in another presentation, was like, if we saw this as like, instead of nations, like, oh, I'm this and you're that, and I'm this gender, you're that gender, or this sexuality and that sexuality, instead of dividing, if you just saw everyone as in like, this is Earth School and we're all in the same class, right, then we'd have a lot more love for each other, right? I'd be like, nice one, well done, or you would, I don't know, it's like we're all in this together, really. So even the ones that are struggling, even the ones that commit crimes, etc., we are all in this together. And every single person is loved and valued.
Yeah. And it comes, like, going back to that, the idea of what is love is, because there's so many people that don't feel loved and valued, and if we can understand that love has no limits, it's just us that puts limits on love, and we can just let go of those limits. So like Mia, what's stopping you from being loved? Rhetorical question. Say, well, I don't really like this about me. I don't like my laugh. Say, it's like, well, just, just let it, just let that go. Accept yourself. And once you can accept that and accept that love is boundless and limitless, then love will flow to you automatically. You will feel lighter instantly after you let those things go. But I think I agree with Zach saying that those to if you can do a meditation practice where you bring in energy and you focus on your heart, and like the only way to energize somewhere is to focus on it, and you bring energy into that portal, into that center, then you're gonna get to a point where you have so much love, you're not even gonna care about all that other stuff anyway. You're not gonna care that someone did something to you 10 years ago. You're not gonna care what anyone says to you right now. You're not gonna be worried if things don't work out, because you just feel so much love. You just feel so happy, and you feel so much joy and peace. You're just vibrating at level, and everything will start to fall into place.
Exactly, because those emotions we've been holding on to for all those years are then forgiven because of the love we brought in.
It washes it away, it flushes it out, it pushes it out. It's like you're switching on the light. There's so many ways to get to this point, but just switching on the light. And I think going back to the Dumbledore quote, he says, like, understanding is the first step to acceptance, and without acceptance there can be no like healing. It's like we have to understand. We need to learn and expand our minds and see things differently. Like, because everything someone could have come on the stream tonight, and everything we could have been talking about could have gone straight over the top of their head, because they didn't understand it. They didn't really know what perspective we were looking at things, and how we were referencing things.
There's one quote that I really, really like, and actually resonates a lot for me. It's mentioned in those business motivational videos an awful lot, but I can't remember who said it, but something along the lines of, people don't fear not being able to. People fear being able, and being more able than they ever imagined they could be. And it may sound really odd, like, what are you talking about? Like, people want to be that way, but actually really think about it. Like, if you were to really accept and use your gifts, and everyone has a gift that was given to them, then the responsibility that comes with that, and the
backlash.
Yeah, there's so many layers to being a human being. It's literally just, I think the goal of being a human is to get rid of all the layers. That's it. Like, you get to the end, you're like, cool, how many days you got left? Well, I got rid of all of them. You got rid of all of them? Yeah, someone else got like 10 left. Oh, I nearly made it. Like, I think that's the game. It's like, how do you just become completely back to the beginning, back to source?
I see that as like, as also like enlightenment. So like, once you start to understand, you learn, right? So we're all on this path of personal growth and development, and we're all like reading books and learning things and watching videos and listening to audiobooks, and it gets to a point where you're like, you go beyond personal development and you go on to spiritual unfoldment and enlightenment. You're trying to raise yourself up, and you get to a point where you start to having to unlearn everything, because all these ideas you have about life and how it works is like, you just need to unlearn all of those things, so there's nothing left, and then you can just observe things as the true observer for everything what they are in their truest form, which is really, if you see things like that, it's like, what does anything really mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give you the name of the best person that will help you out, Chris.
All right, that's a bold statement. I'll take it on.
Yeah? Yeah. I give you their name.
All right.
The name's Chris.
Oh, who's Chris?
And for Zach, the best person, the best teacher for you, Zach, is Zach.
Mm. Mia, best teacher for you.
It's Chris, like that.
No, that's a great point. It is to be able to look at things, though, you know, and observe things and think about and learn things from experiences, and then make an adaptation, I guess.
The best spiritual leaders and gurus and teachers and motivational speakers don't say follow me. They say follow you.
Although that is literally all Jesus said was follow me, and he had so much conviction, people followed. So that's interesting. Anyway.
Did he say that?
Yeah, I think he went to the guys who were fishing, who were going to be disciples, and he just said, "You follow me," kind of thing. And they,
I don't think he was like, it's like follow my way, like fostering that self. Like he was the embodiment of love, not the only one, but like, you know, it's like follow your own heart. Like, it's almost like going. There's no set formula to being the best, highest version of yourself. There's not. Like, if anyone said to you, "Hey, buy my new best-selling book," or like, you know, come to my sold-out tour or something like this, will give you it's just tools in which you, your higher self, might use to help you along the way. And that's what I don't get about a lot of spiritual movements. I'm not talking about religions. I'm talking about spiritual movements as well, which say, you know, you do pranayama 5 times a day, and then you do this meditation, you chant this and that, and then, you know, come back to us in a month, and that's the floor plan for everyone in this room. And I'm just like, that makes no fucking sense. Sorry. Like, it's just, you are your own guide, really. You are your own compass.
Yeah, some people need a guide though, but like until they find that guidance, and guidance, your own guidance can lead you to another guide as well. I find a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or it can lead you to some information, some opportunity that will help you to carry on your journey. This has been unconditional love for oneself. There is love everywhere. Everything is energy. Like everything in the whole universe is just made up of energy, and the whole universe actually stems from consciousness. Like our minds and what we perceive create this realm, so we can create whatever we want in this realm just by seeing it however we want. So if you perceive yourself as loved, as worthy of love, you will be loved. And also you can always just do that meditation, which is great. Like, look up Joe Dispenza or go to Zach's website.
It was funny, wasn't it? It was like uncovering the secrets to loving yourself. Nobody knows about this apart from Joe Dispenza. Anyway, it was a lot of people know about it, but more people need to know about it. Everybody needs to know about it, because it's just so powerful. Like, and people can melt their emotions so quickly with it. It's something I really want everyone to know about. I feel like it would help everyone.
At the end of the day, like, all people need to know is that, like, the universe loves you very, very, very much, and you're all here for a reason. You know, that's it. There's no like,
or just that there is love for you. There's love there that you can that wants to love you. It's just we put conditions on that love for ourselves. Yeah.
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 Putting it.
I'm glad we're all in agreement.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, great.
Right.
Really good
Thank
live.
thank you everyone for watching. And we are starting a new season for the meetings. So go to BeTheChangeCollective.com and you will find more information there. Thank you. Much love.
What is the news? Much love. I was going to ask, what is the new season going to be?